Says we're off it.
There we go.
Hello and welcome to the Bitcoin Brisbane Bitcoin Roundtable on the 15th of June 2015. I'm your host for the evening, John Bond, and I'm joined on the panel by an all-star cast of Bitcoin enthusiasts. I'll introduce them one by one right now. Firstly, we've got Adam. Adam, how you doing today, mate?
Yeah, good, thanks, John. How are you?
Oh, I'm terrific. It's good to have you on board. We'll get to hear more about you in a moment, but first, Ronald's joining us from overseas. Ronald, how you doing tonight?
Very well, thank you, John. Just so you're aware, I'm actually Sydney-based these days, but movements do put me often on the other side of the pond.
There you go. It took me 30 seconds to make my first mistake. That's why we do pilot episodes, you see, to get all the... And we've also got with us the man who put all of this together, Lucas Cullen of Bitcoin Brisbane. Lucas, thanks for taking the time to get all this put together for us.
Thank you very much, Jono. And as you can see, I haven't done that much homework. We're still learning as we go, but that's part of the fun. And just so the listeners know, we're at block 361040 now. I think we should start quoting in blocks instead of time, but that's just a little pet side project I've got as well. But we might dive into that a bit later.
Yeah, well, why don't we start off the show by, why don't you give the listeners a basic idea of the topics you plan to cover tonight and the format that you're hoping that this show will take, not just tonight but into the future?
Yeah, sure. Well, because we live in a large country and we all are doing little independent meetups around the country, I thought it might be good that we all collaborate once a month, bounce ideas around, and just keep in contact and see what other people are doing in the areas. Maybe talk about merchant adoption and events around Australia, and maybe a bit of an open panel on other Bitcoin related news that we're seeing in the press and around the traps.
Good stuff. And we're probably aiming for a 1 hour show for the pilot, and then we'll play it by ear beyond that.
Yeah, I think we'll probably try and do about a half-hour show. Quick update on the cities, and then a bit of a rundown of news and any thoughts after that.
Terrific. Well, if we've only got 30 minutes, we better get straight into the action, and we might as well start off giving the listeners a basic background on who we are and why we're even here tonight. So why don't you get us started, Lucas? Just a basic intro for listeners about Bitcoin Brisbane and how you came to be doing a podcast about cryptocurrency.
Yeah, sure. I got into cryptocurrency pretty early, around 2011. Just by coincidence, I guess. I study math at uni. I work in software, and I work in software in the financial industry. So on that Venn diagram of interests, I kind of sit right in the middle. Just discovered this thing called Bitcoin, and because I was a software engineer, started getting under the hood, proofing it. And when you can't find any more holes in the logic, you start thinking, hey, this may be the real thing. Just started from that. Just started doing my research, gathering knowledge. I quickly found that there was no one in Brisbane doing a meetup, so I just took the initiative and stood up and started a meetup and went from there.
Terrific stuff. Well, as some of my listeners know, I met you through your Brisbane Bitcoin meetup, and when I was there, you had maybe 20 or 30 people in the audience, and I understand that over the last 6 months, your numbers have gotten even stronger.
Yeah, well, the numbers on the books have grown. We get a lot of registrations a week, but the attendance kind of stays around 20 and 30. And that's one of the questions I want to throw to the other boys. And what are they seeing attendance like? At first, I got a bit upset when people didn't return the next night, but then I thought, well, people probably come along, just check it out, see what it's about, get maybe what they need out of the event, and then move on, which is fine. And it shouldn't be a personal reflection on the meetup, or maybe it is. Maybe I'm doing a crap job. But like I say, you get what you pay for as well. There's free beer and pizza, so if all else fails, just get a slice and a can. So, but it's going good. But like I said, I'd like to see what the other guys are doing around the country. So it might be a good segue to Adam to tell us what's happening down in Tassie.
Yeah, thank you. Tassie's quite small. There's 500,000 people in Tassie. I'm based in Launceston, which is even smaller. There's 80,000 people in Launceston. So everything is sort of on a really micro scale down here compared to Brisbane and Sydney, Melbourne. I haven't done really regular meetups. I've probably done one every 3 to 4 months, and yeah, like we'll get 2 or 3 people at each one. Generally, they're newbies. Ask a few questions, and I'll help them download a wallet, and we'll talk about things. And like you said, Lucas, they get the information they need. They sort of answer their questions, and then generally don't come back. But I sort of hear through the traps that they're still doing things and buying bitcoins from the ATM and things like that. So that's encouraging. And yeah, one of the other projects that I do is called Launceston Launch, and so we've got 16 merchants in the city of Launceston that accept Bitcoin, and we've got 2 Bitcoin ATMs. And what we're trying to do is create a real ecosystem. So we're trying to get businesses up and down the supply chain, and so a business can accept Bitcoin, hopefully hold on to some of those Bitcoins, and then when they need some office supplies or a new uniform or advertising, they can go to one of our other participants and actually spend their Bitcoins there. And what we're trying to do is get the Bitcoin circulating rather than just in and out. The regular merchant providers do. They generally sell their Bitcoins and redeem for cash. So, and of course I'm on the Bitcoin Association of Australia, and that's just trying to promote Bitcoin around Australia, generally to the general public, and we do have a few commercial sponsors as well.
Excellent. It sounds like you've got your hands full as well. Did you want to talk a little bit more about that Launceston launch, how it went and the pain there? Because it's something we've been toying with up in Brisbane as well, trying to get a Brisbane Boulevard. Yep. So have you got a couple of minutes, maybe just run through your experience? Yeah,
it is quite a lot of legwork. You generally have to knock on a lot of doors, and you're quite really limited to the merchants that are going to be appropriate. You obviously can't go to the chain stores because they've got to talk to management, which is a time-consuming thing. But you're also limited to the really small shops that are owner-operated, because if you don't talk to the manager or the owner, you're talking to someone that really can't make a decision. So yeah, and then you've got to tee up with them to get back, and generally they won't do anything on the first meeting, so you've got to go back 2 or 3 times to just answer all their questions, take them through everything, and then get a sign up. So we've got 16 now, and what I've been trying to do is limit it to 1 in each market category. So I didn't want a dozen coffee shops, I wanted 1 or 2. And so a bar and probably a shoe shop and a dress shop and advertising. So I've done that pretty well, and it's worked out quite well. And now I'm just trying to push the customer side of things, trying to get people to use the ATMs and then actually use those Bitcoins to go to the merchants and buy coffee or buy lunch or buy a dress, and just trying to get the whole Bitcoin economy side of things rolling along.
Excellent. That's really good stuff. Just before we throw it over to Ron, my little coffee shop up here, the only one that was taking Bitcoin, Oreo Cafe, actually just got sold. So we don't have a coffee shop or many merchants up here in Brisbane. So I really need to get out there and start trying to onboard merchants.
Mm-hmm. And then that's the thing, once you've got a dozen merchants, you don't want to get another dozen until those merchants are actually getting a bit of trade, because you don't want to run the risk of sort of a year later, if they haven't done any transactions in Bitcoin, they'll just forget about it and move on. So it's a real fine balancing act, I think.
Yeah, that's a very good point, something I hadn't considered. Now, I would like to talk about the Commonwealth Bank and ANZ and if that's going to help adoption. But before we do, I think, Ron, did you want to give an update and an introduction from your side?
Sure, I'm happy to. So as a matter of transparency, I should start off by saying that I essentially wear 2 hats. One is as the Managing Director of BitTrade Australia. We're the longest-running digital currency company in the country. We followed shortly on the heels of the first Bitcoin company called BitInnovate. And I believe they wrapped up in July or August of 2013. And it was at that point we saw a number of new entrants enter the market and start to develop digital currency platforms in Australia. So we did well through the course of that year, and come 12 months later, April 2014, at a time when we were having some pushback from the financial service incumbents, when we did start to hear some noise from the Australian Tax Office on their proposed guidance, which was to essentially tax the entire supply of Bitcoin with GST. And of course, we knew there was a need to reach out and speak with regulators, government departments, to make sure that they were across these fast-moving developments and that they understood what the economic opportunities were in front of them, let alone, of course, the obvious questions they'd have around risks. So we formed the Australian Digital Currency and Commerce Association along with two other partners. That would be Digital BTC, based out of Perth. They were the first publicly listed Bitcoin company on an exchange anywhere in the world. We also joined with Australian Bitcoin ATMs, or ABA Tech as they're called, who have been rolling out ATMs into Westfield. So we formed in April of 2014, and we then began working with government by meeting with both departments and, of course, all key regulators and departments and bringing them up to speed on just what this was. And essentially, again, it was, what are the risks, what are the opportunities, and then what does a proposed solution look like to help bring a certain level of comfort to all the key stakeholders. And what we had come up with after doing some research was, we looked and said, is there another industry, or is there, better yet, something in the today's established financial services sector that would have faced similar challenges at the advent of a new technology? And what we had found, of course, was a little startup piece of disruptive technology some 25 years ago that was called EFT, Electronic Funds Transfer. Later became EFTPOS, but at the time it was a guy's idea who walked into one of the big law firms today, Gilbert and Tobin, at that time when it was just two guys in the law firm, and he pitched his idea. They knew they'd struggle. Some banks would see it as a threat, others as an opportunity. There'd be questions from government on consumer protection and legislation. So they suggested they form a body at that time to represent EFTPOS, and this body was called APCA, the Australian Payment Clearing Association. They did the hard work. Eventually, of course, EFT and EFTPOS did start to reach enough consumers across the country several years in where government did have to start to take notice, and consumer protection questions came about, and legislation was actually drafted. Draft legislation was put together by Gilbert and Tobin when it got to that point. They worked with government, crossed the T's, dotted the I's, and of course today you cannot be a bank or credit union in Australia and not be a member of APCA, as they're the association that hands out BSB numbers to banks. And so there we had a very successful self-regulatory model with healthy government oversight. In fact, the Reserve Bank even ended up with a seat on the board for a number of years. So we've looked to them and said, right, this is probably a good model. There's precedent. It's worked out before. And this could be a way to help ensure that there is a clear, understanding, or at least forum in these early days to make sure confusion doesn't reign and Australia is able to adopt this new technology as quickly as possible. So we do work with Gilbert and Tobin ourselves. We do have an excellent government relations set of reps from Canberra, and last year, after we finished with the ATO, as I said, we went to Canberra. We had 22 meetings over 3 days with all key regulators and departments, briefed them on what it was, and we just worked from there. We've been in working level relationships with all of these departments since to help understand what it is they're going to need and specifically come up with a framework. It's been quite successful. Subsequently, we've ended up with the Digital Currency Inquiry, which I believe most of you guys have made submissions to and helped support all the way through. 48 submissions over the course of 4 months, from individuals right to MasterCards and PayPals of the world, as well 3 hearings, and then finally in April of this year, it culminated with the launch of ADCA, where we've opened up to all new members following the conclusion of the last Digital Currency Inquiry hearing. And right, in the last few weeks we've seen, I think, about 12.5 new members join. from, of course, many of the our friends here in the digital currency community, a number of our industry members, right up through to, I'm pleased to say, we've welcomed aboard Norton Rose Fulbright, one of the biggest digital currency, or excuse me, law firms in the world, with a full-time digital currency team of about 10 lawyers working on in all countries. Clayton Utes, our friends there who helped support us through with the taxation issues that we were all facing. And finally, as of today, it looks like we have Deloitte on board. So that's a little bit about ADCA.
Well, Ron, that's a lot more than I expected. That's great because I actually learned a bit there. Now, I did have a note here to ask you about membership, but I think we've just covered that. But yeah, so just quickly tell us, I guess, what do you hope to achieve with the members? Is it just a united front representing Bitcoin across Australia? Is that the philosophy of ADCA?
Absolutely, it's strength in numbers. So look, our aim has been, of course, to represent business interests and make sure that businesses have the opportunity in this space to network with one another, to ensure that we have a proper voice in front of government, and as well with incumbents in the existing financial services framework. We want to make sure, of course, that there's enough room and enough of a spotlight and enough attention on us from government to media to make sure that our interests are not only protected but embraced in this country. And ultimately, we are talking about the emergence of a global digital economy, so there is something here for all of Australia and all stakeholders to make sure that we have to be front-footed in this globally, so we can all benefit in the many years and decades to come.
Excellent. No, that's a very good update, and you must be a busy man. Now, I do often receive emails from Ron asking a bit of technical advice, which leads me into, I want to quickly talk about the announcement on Commonwealth Bank and other banks like ANZ and Ripple. And Ron recently, if I understand correctly, had a meeting with ANZ, and they were asking a few technical questions. One I found a bit humorous, but that's just, they've got to ask these questions. But do you want to give us an update on what happened there, and then maybe we'll talk about the Ripple?
Sure. Comment on what I know, which isn't a great deal, so some of it would be conjecture, but look, again, we've seen 5 key stakeholders we need to work with. That's the public and consumers, then the SMEs, then the professionals and the professional associations, then it would be enterprise, and finally government. The key in the middle, number 3 is, number 3, the key is the professionals, but number 4, enterprise. That is the tougher one to get to, particularly with the folks in the existing financial services end of things. They could, and as we know, it is a little bit too easy for them to perceive this new technology as disruptive and a threat. So we've gone about trying to educate and inform as best as possible everybody. And look, it's been a lot of work over the last year plus. And recently, out of the big 4 banks, we've received 2 letters indicating their support for ADCA, recognizing that there is an important job to be done to make sure everybody is on the same page and everyone has the opportunity to benefit by working together where they can. So finally, number 3, we were invited to ANZ to give them a briefing as to what is happening, how the landscape is shaping up, and answer some pretty technical questions. So a great thanks to Lucas and Bitcoin Brisbane for being able to supply some of the granular details that are required. Look, I'm the first to admit I'm not.
I guess, and just for the audience, if this goes live, one of the questions that ANZ did ask, and I mean it's if you have your banker's hat on, it probably makes sense. And one of the questions where they said, well, there's a lot of focus around exchanges and KYC on exchanges, but what is happening to regulate transactions on Bitcoin? I found anyone who knows Bitcoin may find that a little bit funny that you can create a transaction on a piece of paper with a calculator and in enough time, and no one can stop it unless you can stop math. But I guess it's showing that they're asking the questions and trying to understand the protocol from that level. But I guess in a general sense, Commonwealth Bank and ANZ and the big banks looking at Ripple or open source protocols or blockchain technology. I guess, Adam, what's your thoughts on this going forward? Where do you see this in 5 years?
Yeah, it's interesting, and the developments of the last few weeks with the banks announcing that they're actually exploring Ripple. It's probably a little bit quicker than what I thought they would have come out. I mean, Ron probably talked to them a little bit more. He may have expected that to come out. But I see Ripple as like a good halfway step for them. They can have a play on a network that offers them a little bit of security and something that they're used to at the moment, without going the full step into Bitcoin. And I can understand Bitcoin probably being a bit scary for them, just in the way that the whole protocol works, and there's no one to ring up if something goes wrong, whether that might be mistake or someone in the bank that is trying to steal money, for example. So yeah, I see the Ripple deal as a good halfway step. And I mean, they might be there for 10 years. They might use that, and it might do everything that they need and be the answer that they're after. So yeah, but like I was never a real fan of Ripple per se. I got into Bitcoin because I liked the way that the protocol worked and the new currency that it created. And yeah, it's only in the last few weeks that I've been really digging into Ripple to understand it a little bit more.
Yeah, I think I'm the same. When I first heard about Ripple and when I first heard about the 70% pre-mined, and to me there's a bit of controversy over it, and it didn't really solve anything that Bitcoin couldn't do. Now that may be inaccurate because I haven't read the documentation, as much as I probably should have. But I looked at it from that 30,000 foot view, and the same thing. I just said, okay, it's just another altcoin. I'll direct my focus to what I think is the leading one, being Bitcoin. But I guess time will tell. And like I said, it may have its niche in the financial sector where they need that 1-800 number or someone to call, and it could be a good stepping stone. Ron, did you have anything else that you wanted to discuss? I'm actually starting to run out of the things I had here on my rap sheet. So, yeah.
I think, I can comment a little bit on ADCA's work now with counterpart associations or sister associations in other countries. We seem to be getting some great traction there. We've recently entered into a memorandum of cooperation with the UK Digital Currency Association, as well as Singapore's Access, which is the Association for Cryptocurrencies and Small Somethings. I'm not sure what it actually stands for. Adam, do you happen to know what the acronym for Access stands for? I suppose we could Google it.
No, I'm sorry.
All right. Well, look, they're doing a fine job. I know a couple of the guys who helped head that up are actually from ItBit, which of course were the first Bitcoin company in New York to get the much talked about Bit license recently. So they run a good show over in Singapore on that, and they've done some great work in making sure that banking options remained open for them and that their central bank were across everything. So between them and the UK DCA, and we're now in talks with the Digital Currency Council and of course Coin Center and Canada. We have some great leads into a couple of organizations there, and this is all in an effort to lay the groundwork for larger organization later in the year that's set to be launched in October, or formed rather in October in London, which is being called the Global Digital Currency Congress. And again, similar idea is it takes everybody to come together to take one great leap forward in the same direction. But really, it's to help ensure, of course, that all of us up and coming small businesses and particularly those that come from the vein of open source and accessibility and a way to help ensure that the underbanked and the unbanked have as much access and financial inclusion as possible, really gets tied up, from the beginning through an organization, an international body, rather than have it brought to us by, again, the pre-existing participants in the financial services sector. So the GDCC is slated for October 5 and 6 in London, and it will bring delegates from industry and different associations around the world together, and a constitution is being drafted, and it'll be ratified at that time and create the GDCC in time for, hopefully, we're hoping to have a nod at the next G20 again, as we did last year in Brisbane, where we started this entire process with just a forum on the idea of a global body. So that's all moving along. Beyond that, a few other updates, I suppose. Like I said, a number of new members have come together with ADCA, which has been very exciting, and we're bringing on, I'd say, about 5 to 7 a week, and very shortly we'll have some a few little odds and ends are coming. People will get their logos that they're able to put up on their site. We'll have some communication, some strategic guidance on how best perhaps to and it's completely up to each business if they choose to take it and run, but some guidance on how best to communicate with media and what messaging can look like. And that just helps ensure that, to the extent possible, everyone's singing from the same hymn book. And again, it just helps add more legitimacy to the industry and bring us all together.
Excellent. Well, I'd like to see that when you produce that documentation and stuff. It'd be very good. Okay. Well, I think that was about all I wanted to cover tonight. I think it's been very very rewarding getting everyone's updates. If Jono is still with us, have you got any comments from, I guess, an outsider looking in, if we want to call yourself an outsider?
I could probably sit here for 3 hours and ask you guys questions. I find cryptocurrency fascinating, but I wouldn't know where to begin. But I've enjoyed the show. It's been interesting, and you've assembled quite a little panel here, Lucas, so I hope you're going to make this more often. For those who are watching either live or on delay, what is your plan going forward? Do you want to make this a monthly show, a fortnightly show? What's the plan from here?
Well, the plan was tonight is just to see the effort and just to see if everyone enjoyed it, and if our listeners, if we do get any enjoy it, and if I'm sure if they do, we'll get questions that might fuel the show going forward. So just based on everyone's commitments, we might get, if Adam can't commit, monthly or weekly, you might get him on monthly. We might, reach out to the Perth guys, the Cairns guys, and anyone else who wants to contribute to this. It's everyone's platform. But if we get a good little panel on that we can discuss these things, then get some other leaders from the community or other people with thoughts to jump on board and contribute to the show, they're more than welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very productive, and thank you, Lucas. I appreciate you, inviting me to participate. And I know we've been talking about this for a little bit, but I can certainly see the value now that we've gone through the process. I think,
Well, I'll have to handball that one up the line to Jono. He has really inspired me with these little roundtable episode 40 coming up soon.
So much. Sincerely, I think this could actually be an excellent way to help. Obviously with ADCA we do the newsletter every couple weeks, and the other thing I should mention too is if anyone's interested, starting the end of July, we're finally able to launch our industry networking night monthly. We're starting in Sydney. It'll then go to Melbourne, and as more of a demand increases, we're hoping to do it in Brisbane, Adelaide, and Perth as well. We'll work on that within the next 12 months, but Sydney and Melbourne to start. And it'll bring together 40 to 50 people who have an interest in this space, and we'll rotate it with the different law firms and accounting firms, boardrooms and offices. So we'll probably do a panel type discussion, and we're going to try to live stream it as well, record it and put it up on the website. But I love this idea. This is fantastic, Lucas. I think this is a really great idea, is to do a cast like this. So I'd love to keep chatting with you about it if you're keen.
Excellent. No, thanks for the pat on the back. I appreciate it, and thanks to Jono for stepping up and helping make the night happen as well. Really appreciate it. But that's, I guess, all from us. So if we want to leave it at that, and until next time.
Great.
Yep. And thank you, Jono and Lucas. It's been great. And I think it'd be good for the BAA just to talk to the members a little bit more. it's actually good to talk to the individuals, and it'd be great to have some questions in future.
Yeah, well, I guess that's the intent. If we can make a regular time, get some live listeners on, take feedback, and like the end of Jono's show, he takes some Q&A afterwards, and yeah, we just take it from there.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Alrighty. Thank you very much.
Lucas, I'll give you a call tomorrow.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Adam. Bye.
Yep. Thanks, Ron. Bye bye.